What's up, guys? My name is Alicia, and thanks for joining. I'm so excited to chat. I've been trying to prepare myself to tell this story for my son is 2 months, and he's actually sitting right here. So if you see me looking over, if you hear little baby sounds or little weird sounds, then that's what that is. But anyways, I'm just so excited to finally share my story, and I really wanted to do this because I know that first of all, birth is a transformative experience. It is a transformative experience from the time you find out that you're pregnant to the time that that baby gets here, and then thereafter is when the real fun begins. But honestly, I have just learned so much. I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about my creator and how he's designed our bodies just so amazingly to go through this process. And I've learned a lot about the culture, the birth culture, and so all of my experiences have led me to, I guess, where I am now. So a little backstory: my husband and I, we have 3 babies, 3 under 3, y'all. Are y'all praying? Pray for me. So my oldest is 3. He's actually almost 4. And then we have a daughter. She's 1, almost 2. And then now we have our last baby. Well, who knows if he's going to be the last, but for now, the last, and he's 2 months. And so this last experience, we actually had a home birth. And with my daughter, we had a birth at a birthing center. And with my firstborn, we had kind of like a traditional hospital experience. So I've done it all. I have seen it all. I've had 3 completely unique experiences. And so this is almost like a 3-in-1. I won't go in super detail about the other ones, but I'm sure it will come up because it all kind of intertwines. So let's get into it. Okay, so why home birth and how's a midwife experience different from a hospital or the birthing center? So really, the main reason why we decided to do a home birth this time was one, because I wanted that experience. And shout out to my friend who had a home birth at this time. At this point, I feel like a pro because I've been to 3 different home births of 2 of my friends, and it was just such a beautiful experience. Like, I'm so thankful that they had the courage to do it first. So I could see how I was and kind of, scope it out or whatever. Because and I think that honestly is a part of it too. I think that culturally, nowadays most people give birth in the hospital, and that's the, way you do it. And now I feel like people are coming around a little bit more to the idea of, non-traditional birth in the hospital or whatnot, especially because of so many complications that we're seeing, the death rate, mortality rate, C-section rate, a lot of things, unfortunately. And so I know for me, I really wanted to have a natural experience. And that was actually my goal, with my first baby. I'm like, okay, I got my birth plan. Like, I did all this research, did my hospital visit months in advance, and, visualized, had my diffuser and the music and all this stuff. And of course, they're laughing at me because they're like, why did you bring your whole house to this hospital? Got to the hospital, and I was like exactly 40 weeks, or maybe 40 weeks in a few days or something, and got there. I was having contractions, and by the time I got checked in, they had completely stopped. And so again, this was my firstborn, and so they completely stopped. And because I was already past my due date, they're like, well, get comfortable, sis, because we're not letting you go home. And that was kind of honestly strike one into like a number of unnecessary interventions, bless you, baby, that occurred. And yeah, it just kind of went, I don't want to say downhill from there, because thankfully, my son, I was able to give birth to him vaginally, but it was with epidural. That's a whole other thing. The medicine didn't even, I was still feeling all the pain. It was just a lot. And then there was a lot of, like I said, things, breaking my water and let's try to induce you, and all of those things, when I really wanted that just natural experience. So that's a big reason why we wanted to do a birthing center or home birth for the second go round. So second go round we did at the birth center. It is what I call my redemptive birth because it was just awesome. I mean, I loved it. I loved the aesthetic. If you know me, you know I'm an aesthetics girl. And so the birth center that we had, it was so beautiful. So I knew it was a match made as soon as I stepped in the center. Okay, the time is 12:20, and this is birth suite 1. And it's absolutely wonderful in here. Alicia's getting ready to come in. Here's Daddy. And Alicia is 6 centimeters and 60% effaced. So this is where it all's gonna happen right here, the big shebang. So we're excited. Aside from that, more importantly, it was just such an inclusive experience. It was such an empowering experience. I'll never forget when at my first appointment, you know how they get you to do like a urine sample. And so, I did my urine sample, came back in, going to give it to my midwife. And she was like, "Why are you giving it to me?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "You're going to check your own, you're going to check your own urine." I was like, okay. And so, that's just one example, but she taught me how to use the strip to test my urine and taught me about each reading to see how hydrated I was. And is there any protein? This means this, make sure there's no blood. And it was just from the beginning to end, it was such an inclusive and empowering experience. Like, this is your birth. Because I think sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I love my doctor from my son's birth, but just in that environment, it's just more restrictive. It's more limited. You probably only talk to your doctor maybe 5-10 minutes, and the majority of the time was just waiting to see them in the first place. It's completely different, so that's why we chose midwifery, for that inclusive experience, for that holistic care, because I would always say, like, I just feel like I left a therapy session or something, because at our sessions we would talk about where's your stress level, how much are you sleeping, how much are you eating, what are you feeling. And I love my midwife. She is so knowledgeable in like holistic health and all of these like supplements and all this kind of stuff. So by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I have probably bought up Sprouts and all the stores, because I learned so much about how to help with the issues that I was facing. So we'll get to that in a minute. Y'all know I can be a chatty Cathy. So I do have notes. I'm gonna start using those. So let's go to the next question. Okay, so what was your birth plan and birth goals? So, honestly, this time around, I was just like, "Father, however, whenever, however you want to do this, let's do this." Like, I was a lot less pressed. I don't know that rhyme. I don't know, but I wasn't as I think with my first two, I wanted everything to go a certain way. And I just have learned that birth is unpredictable. Your baby is gonna come out when it wants to come out, how it wants to come out, all those things. So I didn't want to just, I guess, get too boxed in my mind about like how I wanted it to look. But I did know that, of course, I wanted to be at home. And one of the main reasons that, I decided to do the home birth versus the birth center this time was because by the time we got to the birth center, which thankfully, I'll never forget, like, getting to the birth center, and it's like, okay, I just pray that I'm further enough along that they're gonna let me stay. And so they did check me, and she's like, okay, you're 6 centimeters. You have a bulging bag of water. So yeah, we're gonna get you checked in. And so, I'm super excited. They get me in the room. My husband is going to the car to get my things. My mom is there. She's trying to help, set up their room and environment and stuff. Meanwhile, I was thinking like, things I'm feeling pushy. I'm feeling pushy. And within like 20 minutes of being in that room, I was having the baby. Like she was like, I'm ready and I'm coming out now. So it was super quick. It was super quick. Like my thankfully they were already there. So they, were able to come in because I was first I was like, oh, I think my water broke. Oh, I'm pushing. And then I was just pushing the baby out. So anyways, y'all, that's definitely the shortcut version. But long story short, that was one reason why I wanted to have a home birth, because we did all of that loading and getting to the birth center. And at the birth center, you don't stay there overnight or anything. You just, after you have the baby, they do the newborn things, exams, make sure you get, a shower, a good meal, and then they send you home. So we were there for about maybe 4 to 5 hours total. And I was like, well, I'm back at home. I might as well stay here. The other reason why I wanted to have a home birth was because for whatever reason, my babies don't be wanting to come out. I don't know what's up with that, but literally I haven't, like, a lot of people they're like, oh yeah, I have a baby at 38 weeks, 37. No, baby, we're in there for the long haul. So my first one, actually, I said 40 in a few days. He came at 40 weeks and 5 days. My second daughter came at 41 weeks and 41 weeks and 5 days. And so the birthing center, their policy was you had to basically you had to have the baby before 41 plus 6, or you were going to have to go to the hospital. And while, I definitely understand, like, for liability reasons, like they have to, draw the line somewhere, but that just did not align with, I definitely didn't want to have my baby in the hospital. And so it added a lot of stress at the end, because at that point it's like, okay, you got to have this baby. And that's not kind of how birth works. So we were trying everything, and I was just, like I said, my stress level was starting to increase, and I just didn't want that, the extra pressure or that restriction. So that was another reason why, or that was another question I asked, when we decided to go with a different midwife, like, what's your policy on that? So I guess I'll come back to that. Okay. So, how was pregnancy? Oh my goodness. Actually, you guys, so I was thinking that this pregnancy was going to be super hard, but, it was the best as far as morning sickness and stuff. The biggest issue I had this time was my iron. I could not get my iron up. I could not get my iron up. And I've always been kind of borderline anemic, but never like diagnosed with anemia or whatever. So usually I would just, take a few supplements and I would be good. But we were trying everything, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle. Now, full disclosure, my biggest regret for this pregnancy was I wish I would have eaten better. I was so tired all the time. Of course, I'm running behind, like I said, I have 2 other young kids. So I'm running behind them. We have a business. I was tired, y'all. I was not cooking nothing. So I think that probably also contributed to the iron issue. So I will say that, like, I have to take accountability, but that was the main complication. And the reason why it's significant is because if your iron is below a certain level, you also may have to give birth at the hospital, or you may bleed more afterwards, and you don't want to hemorrhage. So that was why it was super important for me to get it up. But other than that, it was pretty chill. Okay, did I deliver my due date? Absolutely not. That due date came and went, and everybody, I think the worst part about due dates is, like, real, to all my first time moms, don't tell nobody your due date. Just don't tell them. Just tell them sometime in such and such. It doesn't matter. They're still going to ask you, like, you ain't had that baby yet? Especially me, they're like, you haven't had that baby yet? When do you do? All the things. And it doesn't help when you're 2 weeks. Right. Yeah, it's just taking a long time. So my due date was the end of January, January 28th, and I had him on February 11th. So I was actually 42 weeks exactly when he finally decided to come. And yeah, all the questions, the check-ins, I was tired of it. I was like, I wish I would have never told anybody that when this baby was supposed to come, because everybody's like, is you having it? You feeling anything? You having any contractions? No, I'm not. And then of course, you'll have like Braxton Hicks, or, like I definitely would have those. And that was probably the worst part, because it's like, okay, is this it? I'm feeling something. Is this it? And then, I may have a couple in a row. I'm like, okay, this may be it. And it was never it. So you get over it after several times of going through that. But anyway, so let's talk about leading up to it. So at about 40 and a half weeks, I had an ultrasound. My midwife wanted to make sure that, baby was good. And of course, now he want to talk. That everything was good. And so we had the ultrasound. And at the ultrasound, they were like, oh, you said your due date was when? Well, according to us, your due date is actually February 1st. And it really threw me, because I'm like, what do you mean? And actually I was excited. I'm telling my midwife, like, hey, we got it wrong, because basically what had happened was my original due date was based on, my last menstrual cycle. And then when you go to get your like confirmatory, that's word, I think that's the word, ultrasound appointment, they give like a more accurate due date. So the later date was actually the one that they initially said, but somehow it just got mixed up, and I was told the other date, and so that's what we're going by. So because I know, like I said, that my babies usually take a long time, and we're already at 40 and a half weeks, I was really excited, because I'm like, or 40 weeks and 5 days, almost 41. And I'm like, well, this buys us more time, right? And so I talked to my midwife about it, and initially it was like, yeah, okay, we got a few more days, we can relax. But then she went and talked to someone, and basically they were like, if you were to get transferred or anything like that, like they're going to go based on the earlier date. And so basically, to be better safe than sorry, we sticking to that. So it gave me false hope. That kind of hurt my feelings real bad, because, like I said, with my second baby, the stress of like, okay, when are you going to come? Like, I don't want to have to go to the hospital. That's something I wanted to avoid this time. So at this point, I'm like, all right, let's get it popping. Let's do all the things, so we tried everything, as far as induction method, everything that's safe. Got to give my disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional, so any of the advice or any of the things that I'm sharing, please talk to your medical provider before taking it. Okay, just had to say that. So as far as induction methods, so, of course, with my second, I went way over as well. And I ended up having to get a membrane sweep, which sucks, hurts, 10 out of 10, don't recommend, hated it. Hurts. So I didn't want to have to do all of that, this time. And I had to do an enema. I didn't even know what an enema was. I had never heard of it. Like, yuck, no. So didn't want to do that. So this time I'm like, okay, I just want to do the fun stuff. Let's do some nipple stimulation. I would try to use my breast pump to do nipple stimulation. I would, of course, they tell you to have as much sex as you can, go for walks, exercise, like all of those things. I'm like, okay, let's do that. 41 weeks came and went, like he was like, no, thank you. So then we have to step it up. So let me look at my notes. All right, so fast forward. So now I'm 41 weeks and 4 days. And my midwife Kim was like, all right, we're gonna have to have this baby. So she came, that was a Wednesday. She came and checked me. He was not engaged at all. And so in the birth world, they have what they call stations. And so basically it goes from, don't give me the line, I think it's like -2 to +2. I could definitely be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But basically, it just tells you how low the baby is, and he wasn't nothing. He wasn't even low enough. So that was kind of discouraging. I'm like, okay. So she tried to do a membrane sweep, which, like I said, not my favorite, hurt like crap. But he was so high up that she couldn't do it. And I remember her being like, okay, let's try one more time. And I'm like, oh, like, okay, like trying not to cry. And so she tried again, and she was like, okay, all right, so I wasn't able to get it, we'll try again if nothing happens tonight. And so later she told me that the reason why she stopped was because when she went in for the sweep, she felt a flap and she was thinking in her head, like, what was that? It was his ear. It was his ear. And so basically, she knew that based on that, he was not in a really good position because midwives are freaking cool to me. Okay. So they can tell, like, based on the sutures, like when she did the sweep, she was trying to feel for the sutures in his head to determine what the position of his head was and what his, position was or whatever. So when she felt the flap, she was like, oh, this ain't it. So that night, basically she was just like, get some rest. She taught me how to do the flying cowgirl, which was interesting. It sounds interesting, but it's really when you kind of, let me see how I can describe it without trying to show you with my body. You lay down and you bend your legs up behind you. So we would do that, and then I would alternate that with side laying, and I would do 30 minutes side laying with the peanut ball in between my legs, and then 30 minutes of the flying cowgirl. And so I just kept doing that. And the next day when she came, he actually had completely turned and was in a much better position. He still wasn't engaged, but she was like, yes, this is a lot better. So we're really thankful and excited for that. So the other thing, what I love about how Kim does it, she also has you establish a relationship with a backup doctor in the event that you do have to go to the hospital. And so basically I went to see him once at 20 weeks to do my anatomy scan, and then I was hoping I would never have to see him again because that means everything went well, right? So unfortunately, because I went so past, she's like, okay, let's make sure you go and let's make sure that you have enough fluid, everything's good, and everything's good with baby, your placenta is still intact, and all the things. So we did that, and everything was good, thankfully, hallelujah. And so he basically was like, all right, have this baby before this weekend. Because at this point, I think, I went to see him on Thursday, and he's like, have the baby before the weekend, and you'll be good. But I did schedule an appointment for that Monday. So of course I'm determined. So Kim came back. She did another sweep. This time he was in a much better position. I was like 2 centimeters dilated. She's like, okay, like this is gonna get you. And so our last resort, well, actually before that, we decided, okay, let's just go for a walk. So I went to one of my favorite places, IKEA. We took a nice family walk and, was looking at the things. In the meantime, I'm doing like lunges and squats. And I also did belly binding, which we use a rebozo, which is just like a really long scarf, and tied my belly and kind of supported it to try to encourage him to get over that pelvic bone. So, and I'm acting like I have a belly as if y'all can see me, but basically I would do lift and tucks and just kind of tilt my pelvis forward and my belly forward and try to get that baby to get down low. So I was doing that, and still nothing, no contractions. So I get home, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do castor oil. This is the last thing. I did do castor oil with my firstborn because I was ready to have him, and I did start having contractions, but if you remember, they stopped. So I was like, and they can make your contractions more intense. So I was like, I really don't want to have to do the castor oil, but at this point, whatever, we're just trying to get the baby out. And so my midwife actually had a unique formula to where she would say, okay, take an equal part of castor oil, peanut butter, and ice cream, and basically make it in like a milkshake, right? That still didn't really appease me. So, but the idea is you don't want it to be too hard on your stomach. So the fat from the peanut butter kind of helps to balance like that oil, that thick, and it's so thick. It's like motor oil, y'all. So got the castor oil. I just did a teaspoon of castor oil, teaspoon of peanut butter, and then I just treated myself with some ice cream afterwards because I wasn't going to leave that part out. So did the castor oil around 8. I'm like, okay, let me straighten up, make sure everything's good, just in case this baby does decide to come, make sure, the atmosphere is ready and set. I got my birth ball, I had my diffuser. Of course, I was thinking about having music. My husband had he had surprised me one day with these beautiful like affirmation cards that we hung like in my bedroom, because that's where I pretty much visualized like I would labor and have the baby. Oh, this time I actually got some really unique tools for this go round. I got what do you call them things? Squeeze balls. What are those things? Stress balls. I got stress balls because my husband said I almost broke his hand when I was birthing my daughter. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that to you this time. So I got that. I got this little roly ice thing that I think it's like for a face treatment, but I just remember being so hot when I was having contractions. So I got that. So it was in the freezer so you could roll my head with ice. I got an electric fan. Quick story, because the last time my mom actually accidentally was using a heater while I'm already having my own heat stroke. She's blowing heat on me thinking it was a fan during my labor. Shout out to my mom. I love you, Mom. Thanks for that. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen again. So I had my fan, just all the things. And then of course my midwife also gave me like a list of items like a sheet or a mattress protector, towels, of course the stuff for the baby, the little peri bottle, like typical stuff. And if needed, I mean, I could definitely post like the list or whatever, or any questions y'all have, just put them in the chat or I don't know how this works. Put the question in the comments and I will answer it. So anyways, back to the story. So, I'm making sure I have everything ready just in case, although I was feeling nothing, not a zilch. But the other thing, with Anaya, the big labor is 90% mental. And so I knew like I just wanted to stay in a calm place. And with Anaya, I actually had a pain-free birth. And so I was a little bit like, okay, Lord, can you do that again? Like I was a little bit nervous. Like I didn't know if it would happen again, but I was hopeful. And one of the things that I studied was hypnobirthing. And at first I'm like, hypnobirthing, what is that? Like, that sounds like some hoodoo stuff. Like I'm not, about, but actually it's really about relaxation. It's about visualization. It's honestly, one thing I've just learned, and I don't mean to get on here and preach, but it's really like fear can sabotage your birth. Fear, let me see, in hypnobirthing, they talk about the fear, tension, pain cycle. And so when you number one, if you're fearful of the pain, then you tense up, right? And then you feel the pain and you get scared again and you tense up, and it's just like an unhealthy cycle, and it actually can stall your labor. It actually can make it longer because your cervix, you want it to open, you want it to soften, and so by tensing up, it's like you're closing that baby up. And so with Anaya, I actually got to practice it, and like from my whole labor, I was so relaxed. I remember thinking like, how am I going to be able to push a baby out? Like if you lifted my arm, it would probably just fall down. Like I was so relaxed. And so it allowed me to have, a pain-free like contract. And I don't get me wrong, I could feel the contractions. I could feel that they were intense, but it just was not painful. People think I'm crazy or I'm lying when I tell them that, but it's possible. And so with this time, I wanted to make sure that I could practice that as well. So fast forward back to the story. And then at about 10:30, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and go to bed. But I couldn't really fall asleep. And so then out of nowhere, like right at 11 o'clock, I felt a contraction and it was very strong. And I'm like, ooh, yes, that was strong. Can I get another one? And so a few minutes later, I felt another one. And I was like, okay, we may be getting somewhere. A few minutes later, I felt another one. And I was like, all right, this may be happening. So I actually put on my birth track. So with Anaya, I actually used the Christian Hypnobirthing app, which is great. But this time, Demetrius actually made my own track, like with him speaking the word of Elohim over me, using scriptures and words of encouragement, and put like music behind. It was just like the most, I have the most amazing husband ever. Love you, babe. Shout out to you. I don't even know if you're gonna watch this, but you better watch it. Okay, sorry. Um, anyway, so he had made me this awesome, birth track. So I just went ahead and put that on because I'm like, if this is it, I want to be in the right headspace. And so then they were coming, I was like, maybe I should start timing them. So I did, and they were already like 5 minutes apart. So I'm like, okay, let me wake up Demetrius and let him know. So it took him a little bit, but he finally got up and was super supportive and just, I had my birth certificate, birth certificate. I had my birth affirmations playing, and we had developed a system. So I would have him time the contractions. I would tap once when it was start and tap twice when it was over. And that was, that was our system to track the contractions, but it hadn't even been 30 minutes yet. But I was like, maybe I should just text my midwife just in case. So I went ahead and let her know. And then she called me. I guess it must have been around like 11:30, like, okay, just checking in. By the time she called me, they were already 3 minutes apart. And so she was like, well, it takes me about 30 minutes to get to you. I can come if you want me to. I know it's still really early, but if you want me to come, I will come, if that will ease your mind. And I'll just sleep on your couch. I'll just take a nap, whatever. So do you want me to come? Now, mind you, this is my third baby. I feel like I got something to prove. Like, I can't call you over here and then you have to go back home because because this baby is not coming yet. So I just felt like I didn't want her to come too early. Anyway, so I was like, yes, just go ahead and come. Or actually, Demetrius was like, yes. And what I didn't know, he texted her, he was like, come quickly. Like, do not take your time. She's like, I'll just take my time, no rush. He was like, come now. Yeah, so that was around midnight when she called or whatever. And so like I said, by this time they're like every 3 minutes. And then she texts me like 10 minutes after that, like, okay, I'm on my way. So she didn't get there until like 12:30. So by this time, my contractions are coming pretty strong. I in my head, I kept thinking like, this feels like the end, but it just started. Like, I just could not wrap my head around it. I just kept thinking like, could this baby be about to come? Like, what is going on? So anyway, she got there, around 12:30, came in trying to set up her things and whatnot. And of course, her assistants were supposed to be coming, meeting at the house. My mom got there in like 5 seconds flat. I don't know how she got there so fast. So she was already there, helping me with the fan. I guess that's her job. She's the fan lady. So making sure, I had water. So this time I made sure to have a bottle with a bendy straw because I didn't do that the last time. So that's a pro tip. Make sure you have, a nice long straw and have that hydration. And so, yeah, so we're doing that, all the things. And then about 12:45, I was like, I'm feeling pressure, Kim. And Kim was like, yes, I don't think my midwife knew because, like I said, she had just got there. She just came in. She hadn't even come over to me yet because she was just, getting all her stuff or whatever. I don't think she knew what I meant when I said I feel pressure. She's like, yeah, you're supposed to. Like, everything's fine. I'm like, I'm pushing. And so literally I started feeling pressure. And I honestly, in that moment, I panicked. I hate that I did that, in hindsight, because I just could not believe it was really happening that fast. And so I'm like, wait, like nobody's ready. In my head, I'm starting to freak out. And so, my husband's like trying to make sure, I stay calm. My mom's like, Alicia, you're good. Like, it's good. This is what, my midwife was reassuring. She's like, this is what we want. Like, we want this baby to come out, right? So basically, I didn't want to tear because I remember with my firstborn, I had a really significant tear. That was the other thing that I wanted to avoid. So, we didn't have, one thing that really helped me with my second baby was oil. We didn't have the oil out. We didn't have the towels, because we had planned to, have a warm towel to my bottom to help, with that. So I just felt unprepared. But at this point, we're in it. So, my mom runs and gets all the stuff. They get the towel. Kim is helping to support me. I am laying in the bed, y'all. Like, I did not move once. I didn't get to use my birth ball, change positions, move, nothing. We in the bed is happening. And so I start, going through the process. I'm pushing. And I remember just saying like slow, like go slow. Cause again, I wanted to make sure that he didn't rip or I didn't tear. And so, basically he starts crowning. And you guys, the most amazing thing happened. I realized my water never broke. Because with my other two, my water broke, before the baby came. My water never broke. He was coming out in caul, as they call it. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but in the sack. And it was so amazing to see, his head fully birthed, still intact or whatever. And so, but then I remember thinking like, okay, he should be out by now. Like this point, I'm in it. I'm just groaning and moaning and trying to get this baby out. And I'm like, I think he's stuck. He's stuck. He's not coming out. And my mom was like, he's gonna come out. And my mom is so funny. You just have to know her to know. She's like, Alicia, he's gonna come out. So I just remember thinking like, he should be out by now. Like, why isn't he out? And so when I went back and watched my video later, my midwife actually broke his head was already fully out. And I thought his head wasn't out. Like I knew it was coming out, but I'm like, shouldn't his head be out by now? So anyway, so his head was out. It was his shoulders that I was feeling. And so, when people say like your body knows what to do and that intuition, like that is a real thing. So anyway, so at that point, she broke the water, which I wish that he would have been able to come out fully in the sack. But because I guess based on how his head came out, she knew that she called it sticky shoulders. And so she maneuvered him out because generally, Kim, I love my midwife. She's very chill, lay back, like just I'm gonna let you do, what you need. And if you need me, I'm here type of thing. So when she did that, I figured that something must have been going on. So anyway, so she maneuvered him out and my son was born on February 11th at 12:54. 12:54, y'all. Like I was, from 11 o'clock from my first contraction, and he was born like almost 2 hours, a little under 2 hours later. And it was just the most just awe-inspiring experience. Like I was just so dumbfounded, so just like, wow, I did this again at my house. Like I just had a baby in my bed at home. It was awesome. And I think the best part about it was just how relaxed everything was, how serene it was. I could still hear my husband's affirmations playing in the background. It was so still. I'm glad also that he came at the right time because I had no idea what I was going to do with my kids if they were up. If they were awake or whatever. So they were asleep. That worked out great. And then they were able to meet him, several hours later, which was the sweet. Like that was probably my favorite part was getting to introduce him. Like, okay, y'all went to sleep and mama was pregnant, and now here's your baby brother. It was amazing.
Like Jude. Hey, babe.
Good job.
Uh-oh, his head fell off.
See the baby?
Yeah, he's so cute.
Oh.
You're cute.
Say hey, Zayn.
Hi, Cheyenne.
Okay, so after baby was born, we did all the newborn stuff. Demetrius actually was able to do skin to skin like immediately after he cut the cord, and then that way, I was able to deliver the placenta. We had a little bit of issues getting the that placenta did not want to come out. I don't know, but it finally came out. I actually did not hemorrhage. Thank you, Father. That was another way that he just showed up in my birth because like I said, I had issues with iron. So that was a concern that we had. I had a little bleeding initially. And so she just went ahead and gave me a shot of Pitocin, which actually helps to stop the bleeding. And it stopped like immediately. And so I was able to, deliver the placenta intact. And then we were able to nurse and, I have to do another video about breastfeeding because guys, I have pretty much every problem that you could have with breastfeeding. I have experienced them all from inverted nipples to latching issues, tongue ties. All my babies have had tongue ties. We've just had all sorts of things, but we were able to, start nursing and all those sorts of things. It was just super chill. So anyway, afterwards, y'all, I didn't have any tear. I did not have to get not one stitch. Oh, I was so thankful. And he weighed 9 pounds, 2 ounces. And so, a lot of people think that if you have big babies, like you're going to tear, and it is totally possible to have a big baby and not to tear. So I was just so thankful because I was sure that I had, because of the way I was clowning. All bets are off. Look, it was pain-free in the labor, but as soon as I panicked, and like, that's when it was just like, I just felt everything. And that's okay. That's a part of the process too, so looking back, like, I was kind of like scared to watch my birth video because I'm like, I didn't want to see how I was acting or whatever, but honestly, watching it, I feel so empowered, and I cry every time I watch it. I laugh every time I watch it because I'm like, girl, you are something else. But anyway, so after he was born, we did all the newborn things, weighing him. We actually were able to do oral vitamin K instead of the vitamin K shot. And we declined to do the eye ointment thing. But everything else, was pretty standard. She got him ready, did his footprint and did all the paperwork so we can get his birth certificate. So it was awesome. Unfortunately, so I had planned to have 2 of my friends at my birth, but because everything happened so fast, they weren't able to get there in time. So I hate that they missed it, but I'm glad that they were so willing to be there to support. So one of them brought me some food, and we were able to eat Waffle House because nothing else was open. And that was pretty much it. Okay, so how did I feel afterwards? I felt great that I had just, had this baby, but I was exhausted. I was hungry. Thank you for my friends who got us food. And I was in pain. So, they talk about like those after birth pains and those cramps. I've heard someone say that they get worse with each child. I wish someone had never told me that, but they were intense. And I had planned to just use the little, it's called After Ease, like a tincture, and it's like a natural remedy for cramps. It wasn't strong enough, y'all. Like, those after birth cramps were worse, and maybe I should have tried hypnobirthing or something with that, but they were a lot. So I ended up taking some ibuprofen, and it took a few days for that to kind of subside and me to feel better. But I will say, as far as healing, because I didn't tear, like, this was probably the best as far as healing afterwards that I've had. Within, like, I would say a week, I was feeling almost too good that I was doing too much. So don't do too much, because it will impact your bleeding. You want your bleeding to subside. And I had because I was feeling so good, I had kind of started doing too much, and then my bleeding started back. So don't do what I did. But I was just glad to, not be feeling like, just so down and out for so long. So yeah, so that's one super advantage I feel like to having an all natural and home birth. So I just feel so blessed to have been able to do this, not 1, not 2, but 3 times. And I'm really excited. I hope that something that was said is encouraging, because you can do it. Listen to your body, learn about your body, learn about your process. And if I could give any advice, it would just be to know how to be your own advocate, because I know that no matter where you have your baby, it's important to trust that the Father has designed our bodies perfectly. He's designed your baby perfectly. And the process may not look perfect. It may not seem perfect, and things may come up. But even in that, that is the way that it was destined to be. So trust the process. Trust the process. Have a good team. Have a good support system around you. And be confident that you can do it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment, and I will try to respond as quickly as possible. Shalom.
Okay, I'll stand over here. And just come over here. Alicia, the Lord has blessed you to bear a son once again, naturally in your home. It's been an honorable decision that you have made and Demetrius have made And we decree the blessings of the Lord upon you and more of his favor upon you for decisions you are making regarding his will being done in your life. Yes. And we bless you with wisdom, knowledge, direction on how to be a mother of mothers to this young man and to the other children. And we bless you and confer the third generational blessing on you, the third child blessing upon you. And Father, we thank you for her now. Amen.